Hallo und herzlich willkommen. Hier lernst du alles rund um das Thema Investor Relations, Fundraising und Kapitalmarkt. Mein Name ist Julia Stötzl und ich bin Gründerin und CEO von Investor Relations Beratung Unicorn. Unicorn ist davon eine Mission, Investor Relations für die nächste Generation einzuführen. Das bedeutet ganz konkret die Integration von digitalen Medien wie zum Beispiel LinkedIn, Podcast, Newsletter in die klassische Kapitalmarktarbeit. Mehr Informationen zu Unicorn, aber auch zum Podcast findest du unter unicornconsulting.com. Und jetzt wünsche ich euch viel Spaß beim Zuhören.
Yeah, it's actually pricing power in these days of higher inflation. It's the market position, the risk of replacement of the product, sales and earning stability and rising trends, but then also a focus on the returns of the capital which you are deploying for us or for the investors.
Today we have with us Heinrich A. Heinrich is a German fellow, if I can say so. I know him already for quite some years. And he is co-CEO of Alliance Global Investors for Small and Mid Caps. Welcome to the show, Heinrich. It's great that you are here. Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit more to the audience, what you're doing, what your career is, your background?
Yeah, as said, my name is Heinrich I. I'm the co-CIO for European Small Caps at Alliance Global Investors. I'm working for the companies and its various asset management entities now for more than 28 years. I had various functions in it. So I started my career in the mid-90s as a trader, mainly for equities. Enjoyed that because this is the real short-term life. You are at the pulse of the market. Later on, around the year 2000, I switched over to fund management on the equity side. Started as European portfolio manager, and then later on could change after the merger of Allianz Global Investors or Allianz Asset Management at that point in time into the telemedia analyst team. I analyzed their European but also emerging market telecoms and media names, as well as was responsible for telemedia related funds. Later on, I took on the helm of leadership, so I became the global head of telemedia for more than a decade until 2016. And since then, I have taken my next career step into the role of the co-CIO for European Small Caps. And this is something which is also very exciting because there are so many interesting business models out, so many companies and managements you can meet and analyze. So every day, you have plenty of opportunities.
It's very interesting. Now, thank you for joining us again today. And I mean, as you said, for Alliance Global Advisors, the scope is quite broad and your focus is then on the small and mid cap. How would you actually describe the investment approach and how the company goes about looking at investments?
Yeah, we have a broad definition of micro, small, and mid caps, I would say. So micro caps, we think about up to 1 billion market cap, which is rather at the upper end of the range. Small caps, we look at investments into companies with 1 to 10 billion market cap, which is also in line with the MSCI European Small Cap Index. And then above 10 billion, let's say up to 15, sometimes 20 billion, we define it as mid caps. And this is the whole universe we are looking at with my team. From an investor perspective, we are looking for more the quality businesses. So we are looking at niche business models, market leaders, global market leaders, European market leaders, also sometimes domestic market leaders. We have close contacts with managements. We are doing more than 1,500 meetings each year with managements, including engagement on the sustainability side. We are looking at balance sheets, the sustainability of the margins, the barriers to entry, of course, but also the alignment of management with respect to the interests of the shareholders. How are they incentivized? How is their track record? What is their management DNA? And also a clear check on the supervisory board, that we know that there are the right people at the right place. But then, of course, and I think this is one of the major parts of this session, it's also important, of course, beside the investment story, to check the IR team, the IR approach, and everything which belongs to that. So all that I would phrase as the quality aspect of investments.
Great. I mean, you must have seen quite a few. As you said, you do a couple of thousand of meetings already. So you must have seen a lot of IR for the good and the bad, I guess. How would you say, what are good traits? What are good qualities? I mean, you're also in the IR magazine. How do you say, like,
A judge,
not
yeah.
audience, but you're a judge, exactly, for the IR magazine. So you also judge IROs on their qualities. So what are good qualities for someone to have that convinces you of making an investment eventually?
Yeah, that's now a quite range of expertise and skills you need to have. And this has really tremendously developed over the last 20 years since I'm doing company meetings. It started, of course, with the normal preparation work for presentations and meetings and a bit of preparation on AGMs, but with digitalization on the one side and the broadening of the investor base, but also the more regulation coming into the game. I mean, the skill set has changed a lot, and the requirements have gone up. I mean, today you need to know the investor base, which you have or which potentially you could have. You need to know what the sell side is doing. You need to manage expectations on both sides. You need to teach the management in terms of expectation, in terms of communication, but also with respect to market developments. You need to be aware of all kind of digital communication channels today. So you can reach every kind of investor via LinkedIn, via TikTok, whatever you like. It also gives them.
I love that you're mentioning that. I love that you're supporting my thesis.
Yeah,
a lot of people are like, no, institutional investors are not looking at that, but I'm glad that you're saying that, and we did not discuss this before.
No, but this is of course something very important, because particularly with the digital channels, you can also reach out to retail investors in a very direct and easy way. Can explain the investment story, can explain the DNA of the company at a very low cost and in very full speed. So this is something you need to be aware of, and you need to have the skills today. And then it's all about, also monitoring what is written in the markets or what is discussed in the markets about the investment story, about the company. Because today, and here is also a little bit the talk on the crisis modes in which you can come in. You might have profit warnings, you might have short attacks. You might have investors who check the communication of the management via specific AI tools, whether there are certain elements and structures in it which could signal a worsening of trends or an improvement of trends. So all this is a development which we have seen in the last couple of years, and which has, I think, completely changed IR work. And I have not spoken on sustainability, which is also a topic of rising interest and awareness. So for that, you additionally need specialists to fulfill all the requirements.
Very interesting. But would you say of course there's, we see a lot of trends and people talking about like things that they're thinking about implementing, et cetera, et cetera. But from your side, like within your team, have you implemented some of these new trends and tools? Do you use AI within your ways of working, or do you like track sentiment when analyzing a new company or a group of companies? Or what's been your approach?
Yeah, we also have started in implementing some of the tools. I mean, you need to train the tools, you need to find the right signals. These kind of sentiment trackers are now quite popular, and we are also working on that. It's fair to say that we are all at the start of the journey from that side. I mean, you have thousands of signals. It can be also insider buying and insider selling, which is used by some of the investors as a signal for the level of trust into the future business. But yeah, it will be part on our side as well. And therefore, we are as pressured from this new technology as we have the opportunities, of course, in getting new supporting signals out of that. But on the other side, we also have a tool called Grassroots, where we can check basic trends with respect to products in terms of price trends, whether people like it, what people don't like at a product, with online tools, surveys which we can do and which we are doing for some of our holdings in terms of trends. So this also is already part for quite a long time of Allianz Global Investors, but has changed from physical interviews completely or almost completely into the digital side, because here you can target, of course, the right people, the right clients very directly, who you ask.
Maybe let's move a bit from I think the first part of the interview covered a bit more the strategic part of things, but now we do want to dive a bit more into the market. You're very close to the pulse of the market, obviously to the pulse of the capital markets, and see them, moving from day to day. And you're covering small mid caps, which is also an audience that is listening to this podcast quite a bit. Also, a few of my clients are mainly small mid caps, so I'm quite curious to hear from you directly. What are currently good investments for you? What do you consider good investments in the sense of industries? Is there a specific profile? Does it have to be profitable? For example, I know back in the days, profitability was not so much in vogue, but I guess it is now. Are there any other traits that you would say, a company has to have the green tick for you as an investor to even look at it, or an industry or something?
Beside what I already mentioned at the beginning, it's actually pricing power in these days of higher inflation. It's the market position, the risk of replacement of the product, sales and earnings stability, and rising trends. But then also a focus on the returns of the capital which you are deploying for us or for the investors. So the usual KPIs which we are looking at, but with respect to what has happened in the last 2-3 years, of course, with a different mindset. So the supply chain issues stemming from Corona and the Ukraine war have definitely changed the game here and there. Have also put pressure on some of the balance sheets, so particularly for those companies with higher debt and lower free cash flow generation, and this in the light of rising interest rates. So some companies which looked quite safe 2-3 years ago are now quite in trouble, and this, of course, is also a differentiating factor at which we are looking when we are looking for new investments, when we analyze the business model and the upcoming business trends.
And looking forward, would you say that the sky looks more blue and rosy, or do you also see more troubles ahead? I mean, the sentiment today sounds rather positive looking, if we want to put it that way. There have been a few IPOs. So the US market unfortunately didn't get the expected inflation levels that they wanted, but the expectations for the next couple of months seem like, okay, there is a window where things can happen, but then there is uncertainty more towards H2. Is this what you're also seeing, or do you have a different read on it?
Yeah, good question. Timing is difficult in these markets. I mean, when you purely look at the indices, you would wonder why the mood is not much better than it is now. We are all aware there are geopolitical risks out. We have recently discussed whether a recession is coming or not. Now, the soft landing scenario seems to be the core assumption among investors. So from that side, getting used to what's happening, also in a very big election year, it looks brighter. That's what I would confirm as well. We had very low IPO activity in the recent past, maybe except for 1 year, which was 2021. But there's a desperation on all sides that there are new IPOs coming. I know that there are hundreds of exits planned at all the investors, whether it's PE, VC, or some of the established companies which want to make their structure a bit cleaner. The banks are working in the background. What we need is maybe a stabilization of the interest rate side, or the first rate cuts as a supporting signal, and also at least a stable macro picture from a top-down perspective to give some of the company models a chance for IPO.
It's quite the ask.
Yeah. But in general, I would say the clouds are disappearing a bit. We have seen now the first successful IPOs here with Rank and Essence Airport, and we have seen that there is a lot of over demand and good share price performance now when I look at Rank, for example. And this also was due to the fact that there was better valuation work and a more attractive price for investors compared to what the sellers demanded 2 years ago, or compared to what the sellers demanded even 6 months ago. And this is getting rewarded. And I'm always wondering why the sellers want to maximize the price in the first go, because normally they come with the first part. And if it's not working, then if people are losing money from day one or later on, then definitively there is little chance that another placement can happen. And then it struggles along in the stock markets with limited free float and the poor share price performance, and destroys the longer term exit plan. So therefore, this is, I think, one of the lessons we have, or the sellers have to learn from what has happened, for example, in 2021. And if they can manage to give the investors a better entry price, a more attractive level, and this has especially differentiated Europe versus the US. If we can make that, then we definitely will see a lot of IPOs coming into the market. Because on the other side, we are losing attractive investment stories. The takeovers have started again. Some of the bigger companies are sitting on a lot of cash, have a need to deploy, don't see organic growth opportunities, and also see on the other side that particularly small and micro caps are particularly cheap after the recent underperformance. So therefore, we will lose on the one side, and therefore need new stories, new IPOs on the other side.
I would tend to agree. I think, on, as you said correctly, right, on the company's point, they need an exit. The investors, the existing investors, want an exit. And at the same time, I would also say, maybe you can confirm that investors that are on the public markets also want to deploy the cash, right? Because they also need to invest in order to make their returns, right? So I think everyone is interested in kind of getting on the table, but not at the prices that people or companies wanted to go for maybe 1 or 2 years ago. And I think that just needs to be accepted. Maybe that's just the hard reality sometimes. But what would be interesting for me is, I didn't follow rank so closely. So you said the after performance was quite strong. Do you think that they lowered the price in the first place? Like, was the price like attractive to investors? Would you say so, or did they price at the high end of the?
If I remember correctly, yeah, there was a lower price in the second round now when it happened, after it was pulled on short notice some months ago. And I also have not followed it that closely, I must admit. But what I heard is that the book was not very well covered with respect to quality in the first go, and then they decided to pull it and bring it now at a later stage. Obviously, of course, the theme of defense also has further moved up in the ranking, given the geopolitical developments. But overall, as said, and it's not specific to a sector, we need attractive entry points so that investors in the first instance have the assurance that they can make money on the retail side, but also on the institutional side, and also can trust the company with respect to delivering on the business model, particularly the first 1 to 3 quarters. Shouldn't come along with profit warning, of course, something we also unfortunately have seen in the past, and this is definitely not helpful.
Would you say that going forward, I mean, back in the days, one of the key points for, or like one of the key cornerstones of a good IPO was also getting like a really good and strong like cornerstone investors in right at the start. How do you feel like this relationship has changed like in the last 2 years? Like in 2021, it was like a given theme for an IPO, and now maybe this relationship has changed. Maybe these same investors want to act differently or have a different risk approach or appetite.
I think it's still positive, and it's still happening that if you have anchor investors which support you, particularly if these are the prominent asset managers, then this is definitely a good signal, because they do the work in advance. They have access to the figures. They have time to discuss also with management. They know the risk they are taking, but also the opportunities, of course. And then if they agree on a price, and if the price itself does make sense in relative and absolute terms, then definitely this is a very strong basis for a successful IPO.
Maybe a last one from me. I know that we're getting towards the end of the call, and it's a question which Julia might like very much. You mentioned sustainability earlier and exactly the growing importance within the changing capital markets that we're seeing now. I mean, we know CSRD and all the governance topics have been important for quite some time, but now exactly like they're top of mind. How do you see this affecting or shaping decision making and investment based decisions going forward?
Yeah, this is an important part of most of the investment processes, particularly in our house, but also generally. And this is driven by various aspects, of course. I mean, on the one side, investors might want to have a bigger focus on sustainability or the impact what their investments will have on the society and the environmental side. On the other side, you also have developments on the legal side with the supply chain law, for example, where the companies in which you invest need to make sure that they are following certain processes and rules with their suppliers and clients. But also, and this is something which is maybe overlooked today, if you are a company want to get public, you need to have a good ESG story also as a kind of purpose, because you need to attract talent, right? And also your customers will ask more and more for the purpose of your company or your products, your business model, your services. And this is also something you should have an answer. So there are various ways to look at it, and all of them should drive a bigger focus on sustainability, even beyond the legal requirements. And this is a special part of IR work as well, which will gain further traction in the future from that angle.
Very interesting. I do have indeed two more questions, if I may. So one is a bit on my own agenda. So we already alluded to it, that you say the digitalization of investor relations is also rather important. Now, I do want to ask very concretely, because you are an institutional investors, and there's always the thesis in the room that no, institutional investors are not looking on LinkedIn, they're not looking on social media. Do you, when you do your DD on an IPO, or when you do an DD on buying a stock that's already listed, do you look on LinkedIn and on social media of the founders, for example, to get information? Or is that not a channel that you would look at all?
We are looking at that as well. I mean, first of all, we are looking at the normal webpage on all the presentations and company information we can get. We also do the normal Google search. But then you also try to get more the background behind the people who are running the process, the motivation. You even check sometimes if available data like Kununu, but definitely also LinkedIn. What kind of messages they are sending, either as a person or from a company perspective. And I think this will rise in terms of importance as well, and particularly the younger the investors are getting, the more digital work they are doing, and it's also a change in mind from that perspective, I have to say.
Got it. Very interesting, very helpful indeed. I would have one last question, which is actually something. So you are representing Allianz Global Advisors, right?
Allianz Global Investors, yes.
How is that associated to Allianz? Is Allianz backing it, or is it like an individual fund? I'm not so much into, I don't really know how funds are structured. I'm just curious how that is set up, and how much Allianz is just giving the brand, or how much they're already putting in equity.
Yeah, we are a part of Allianz Group, Allianz SE. We are one of two asset managers beside PIMCO. PIMCO is very much known for its fixed income expertise. We at Allianz Global Investors are offering the whole range of assets, equities, fixed income, multi-asset, infrastructure, a lot of alternative assets, liquid, illiquid, and this with the support of our mother company, Allianz, to which we belong. So there is a very close relationship. And maybe finally talking about sustainability again, I mean, Allianz as a company is very much driven by the focus on sustainability. And this is also what's driving our DNA in the investment process for most of our clients.
Very good. Thank you so much, Heinrich. It has been really interesting. Honestly, I actually follow Allianz GI for quite some time. Fun fact, at the very end, I applied once and I got rejected and for like an internship, I think back in the days in London it was. But so I'm following.
Yeah, sometimes you make mistakes.
So I'm following the company already for like probably 10 years or so. But very interesting what you're doing. It was a pleasure to meet you again and to have this interview.
Thank you. My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So, wir sind jetzt auch schon wieder am Ende des Podcasts angekommen. Ich hoffe, dir hat diese Episode gefallen. Wenn du Hilfe brauchst bei irgendwelchen Kapitalmarktthemen oder digitalen Investor Relations Themen, dann melde dich gerne unter unicornconsulting.com und buch dir einen ersten freien Consulting Call. Wir würden uns ebenfalls darüber freuen, wenn du uns auf Social Media folgst, zum Beispiel YouTube, TikTok, Instagram oder auch LinkedIn oder wenn du einfach einen Like da lässt. Ich wünsche euch alles Gute und bis zum nächsten Mal. Eure Julia. Ciao.